Summary of The Breadwinner by Deborah Ellis. Pravana, who is 11 years old, sits with her father in the market. He is reading a customer's letter. Before the Taliban took over the city of Kabul a year ago, Pravana was a happy student. She wasn't too worried when the Taliban shut down schools and said girls couldn't go to school. She thought the Taliban would let them go home soon, but her older sister, Nuria, was upset. Nothing has changed after a year. Pravana shouldn't even be out of the house, but her father needs her help to walk because he lost part of his lower leg and sold his replacement. Even though Pravana's family used to be wealthy, the constant bombing of Kabul over the last 20 years has made them poorer and poorer. Now, they all live in the same room. Father tells them to call it a day, so Pravana gets the things they are trying to sell and walks back home with him. The road is rough, and there aren't many houses left. Nuria can remember when there were traffic lights in movie theaters in Kabul. At home, Nuria is helping her mother clean out the kitchen. Since they aren't able to work or go to school, they clean. Pravana doesn't like this because it's her job to get water, and cleaning takes a lot of water. Pravana hasn't met their neighbors, even though they live nearby. The Taliban wants neighbors to watch on each other, so it would be dangerous for Pravana to make friends with any of the children in her neighborhood. Pravana's mother gives her a bunch of things to sell, including her nice red shalwar kameez. Pravana is angry, but her mood changes when mother puts Hosseин's clothes back in the wardrobe. Hossein was her bigger brother. When he was 14, a landmine killed him. Father tells the story of Malali after dinner. Malali encouraged the Afghan troops to win the war with the British by waving her veil like a flag and reciting poetry. Father says that the women of Afghanistan are the bravest in the whole world. Just as Mother and Nuria start to clean up, a group of Taliban troops rush in and arrest Father. When the soldiers look through the trunk and get dangerously close to where Father has hidden his English books, Pravana hits them. They go away. When Maryam, age 5, and Ali, age 2, go to sleep, Mom, Nuria, and Pravana clean up and try to go to sleep. Mother says no when Pravana says they should light a lamp in case Father gets lost and needs to find his way home. Mother and Pravana went to the jail the next morning. Mother shows people a picture of Father as they walk. At the prison, Pravana thinks of Malali and shouts at the guards with her mother. Mother is beaten until Pravana agrees to leave. When they get home, Pravana notices that Mother's feet are bleeding because she hasn't been out since the Taliban came. Mother is taken care of by Nuria while Pravana's sore feet are washed by Maryam. Mother cries for days and sleeps on a toshak. When there is no more food, Pravana and Nuria are too scared to go get water, so they stop changing Ali's diapers. On day 4, Nuria tells Pravana to go to the store and buy food. Women can't go into shops, but Pravana isn't sure if she's old enough to be considered a woman. But if she stays outside without a veil, she might get into trouble. She buys some naan and then goes to a fruit and vegetable stand. When a Taliban soldier yells at Pravana, she runs and crashes into a woman who is carrying a child. It turns out that the woman is Mrs. Weera, who used to teach gym. Mrs. Weera goes to Pravana's house because she wants to persuade Mother to work on a magazine. As soon as Mrs. Weera sees what's going on, she cleans up Mother. The next morning, when Pravana wakes up, the adults tell her what they are going to do. They will cut her hair and dress her as a boy so she can work and shop in the market. Pravana wants Nuria to do it, but Nuria is already too curvy to be mistaken for a man. After Mrs. Weera gets Pravana to agree, Pravana's mother cuts her hair and gives her Hossein's shalwar kameez to wear. She finds out at the market that as a boy, she can't be seen. The next day, Pravana takes Father's writing tools to the market and sets up her blanket where he used to sit. Her first buyer is a soldier from the Taliban. As Pravana reads a letter to his late wife on the day of her wedding, he starts to cry. Pravana can't believe the men feel things. In the afternoon, Pravana helps Mrs. Weera and her niece move in with Pravana's family. Then Mrs. Weera puts cloth around Maryam's feet so she can go with Pravana to the tap. Over the next week, Pravana will go on afternoon walks with Nuria, Miriam, and Ali. Pravana loves work. She thinks she sees father at the market one afternoon, but it's not him. One day, Pravana finds a piece of stitched wool on her blanket and realizes it came from the window above. A few days later, she sees the window woman and finds another gift. One day, a tea boy spills cups on Pravana's blanket. She is shocked to find out that the tea boy is Shazia, who she used to go to school with. Shazia walks home with Pravana at the end of the day. She says that she, her mother, and her biological grandparents have been living with them. Shazia has been a tea boy for 6 months, but she would rather sell things off a tray. Mother and Mrs. Weera talk about the magazine they are making in Pakistan with help from their secret women's group over dinner later. Shazia comes to Pravana later with a plan to make money. She wants to dig up bones. Pravana unwillingly walks around Kabul with Shazia. In the graveyard, bones stick up, and the bone dealer sits at one end. The girls start digging. Pravana digs up a skull and puts it on the tombstone. He calls it Mr. Skull. When they have dug up 5 bodies, the girls take turns watching over the bones while they go to the toilet in a bombed-out building. Pravana is afraid that she will come across a landmine. The girls then take the bones to a man who sells them. They can't believe that Pravana makes this much money in just 3 days. The girls dig for the rest of the afternoon and decide that they don't want to tell their families what they've done. When Pravana gets home, though, she can't stop thinking about Mr. Skull. She cries, collapses into her mother's arms, and tells everyone everything. Mother says they don't need money badly enough to dig up bones, but Pravana says she will dig until she has enough money to buy a tray and things to sell. Nuria agrees with Pravana and says that they don't have enough money for food, rent or paraffin. When Mrs. Weera says that people have to do unusual things to stay alive, Mother gives in. Pravana and Shazia have enough money for their trays after a week. On her first day back in the market, Pravana spends the morning writing letters. The window woman gives Pravana a bead. As Pravana looks at it, she thinks she and Nuria no longer fight. Fighting doesn't make sense now. The girls Pravana and Shazia sell cigarettes and gum in the afternoon. On a Friday afternoon, the girls see guys going into a stadium. The girls thought they could make a lot of money at a soccer game, so they went inside with the crowd. No one seems happy, and there are both Taliban troops and prisoners on the pitch. When a fighter cuts off a prisoner's hand, Shazia screams. The girls are huddled together on the floor while a kind man sitting above them tells them to stay down and not look. Other men help them pick up their gum and smokes as the Taliban cut off 6 more hands, and when it's over, they lead the girls out. Pravana doesn't go to the market for the next 2 days. Thanks to the women in their women's group, Mother and Mrs. Weera know what's going on at the stadium. Pravana goes back to work when the family runs out of bread. Shazia is very happy that Pravana is back. She tells Pravana that she is saving money so that she can run away to France. When Pravana asks about Shazia's family, Shazia says that she knows leaving them makes her a bad person, but she'll die if she stays. Summer comes after spring. Pravana no longer finds the market interesting, but the tribal people who sell food tell her their stories, which she then tells her family. Mother and Mrs. Weera open a girls' school. Nuria teaches, but it's hard for her because she doesn't have much time or money. The window woman keeps dropping gifts, but one day Pravana hears the woman's husband hitting her. She plans to tell her family, but Nuria's mother tells them herself. Later, Nuria tells Pravana that this is a great chance because her new in-laws will pay for her to go to college and the Taliban don't control her future husband's city, Mazar-e-Sharif. Mother decides that everyone will go to the wedding in Mazar, but Pravana says no. She's afraid that when her dad gets out of jail, no one will be there to greet him. Mother is so angry that she chooses to leave Pravana. Mrs. Weera tells Pravana that she should save some of her extra money. Near the end of August, Pravana gets caught in a rainstorm and takes cover in a bombed-out building. When she wakes up, she hears a woman crying. The woman is scared, and she doesn't have a hood on. Pravana waits until it gets dark to run home, hoping that the Taliban won't find them. They get by. Mrs. Weera cleans her up. Mrs. Weera is about the same age as Nuria. The next day, the woman says her name is Homa. When the Taliban took over Mazar, she ran away. Homa's whole family was killed by the soldiers, who wouldn't let the living bury or cover the bodies. Dogs were eating the bodies when Homa left. Pravana is scared that her mother and sister are dead, so she spends days lying on the Toshak. Shazia comes by and tells Pravana that she needs to get back to work. Life seems like a nightmare to Pravana until she gets home and sees father coming into the flat. Father gets better bit by bit. Homa has been to school, so she and her father work on their English together. Pravana starts to feel positive once more, and she tells Shazia about it. Shazia says that she is also feeling hopeful. She is trying to leave Afghanistan because she heard that her grandfather is looking for a husband for her. When Mrs. Weera hears that many people from Mazar are in refugee camps, father and Pravana make plans to go find mother in Nuria. Mrs. Weera makes plans to go to Pakistan with Homa, where she can meet up with her women's group and start a school. Mrs. Weera says she doesn't want Shazia because she thinks the girl should stay with her family. A few days before she leaves Kabul, the window woman gives Pravana one more gift. Pravana digs up some wildflowers to put in her friend's place as a way to say goodbye. An old guy helps her and scolds the other men who say it's silly to plant flowers. After 2 days, Pravana says goodbye to Mrs. Weera, Homa, and Shazia. Shazia says she is going soon, too, and suggests that she and Pravana meet in Paris on the first day of spring 20 years from now. Pravana is curious about her future and feels ready to face it.
About the author. Deborah Ellis was born in Cochrane, Ontario. When she was 11, she decided she wanted to be a writer. At the age of 17, she went to Toronto to work as an activist for peace. In 2000, Looking for X, Ellis's first book, was given the Governor General's Literary Award for children's writing. But the Breadwinner Series is what made Ellis famous. She went to Pakistan in 1997 to talk to Afghan women living in refugee camps. She was planning to write a different book when she went, but an interview with a woman whose daughter had to dress as a boy to help feed the family caught her attention and led to her writing The Breadwinner. Since then, Ellis has interviewed women and children in Africa, South America, and all over the Middle East for her stories and nonfiction books. All of her book earnings go to charities like Canadian Women for Women in Afghanistan and UNICEF.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.